Hey everybody, this is Genesis with Genesis, the beginning of something beautiful. It's been a long time, been a while since I caught up with you guys with a tutorial, but I wanted to um, give you guys this information. You can call it downloads, you can call it, spiritual or metaphysical common sense. But, it's information that I need to give to you guys. I just want to say this. I just want to say that, first of all, when the ancestors and when God is working on someone, when they're going through their spiritual awakening, their spiritual journey, when they're finding out who and what they are, when they're finding out the anointing that they have, when they're coming out of a spiritual psychosis, when they're coming out of a metaphysical slumber or, you know, just paralysis or whatever, it is not other entities' duty to fuck with them, to tell them that they don't know their history or their culture, to interfere, because you know who they are. You know that they're bigger than you and stronger than you. You know the blessings and the anointing that God has on their life. And if God put an anointing as major as what divine feminine, these women that come from these royal indigenous melanated bloodlines who are fundamental black Americans, such as myself, if God puts an anointing on us that major, then we're going to go through some major shit. It took a lot for us to figure our anointing out. It took a lot for us to navigate and awaken to who we really were. It was not your call, and it was not for you to intervene, to interject yourself for personal gain and things like that. Anytime you come against an entity that's not harming a threat, posing a threat to you, it's against universal law to do such. And karma will kick your ass in this planet of polarity and duality. The ancestors will kick your ass. So it's not for you. Just because you don't like the way a certain situation is going, or you don't like the vessel of the melanated woman who is indigenous to this country, just because you don't like the vessel that it comes in, it's not for you to switch that up. That's not your call. Today we're going to take it way back. I want to talk about some stuff. Since you're seeing all these Africans and everything on social media, pissed beyond pistification and mad because we are claiming our indigenous dominance and roots, I'm gonna talk about something because it affected me greatly. Okay, but I'm still standing. I'm still here, still glowing, and still showing up. One thing about patriarchy, we have to go back to talking about this divine masculine. Now, the thing about America, this is metaphysical territory. We are the only melanated people on the planet, because this is metaphysical territory, that have awakened and went into the shift as a collective. No other form of black, so-called black, whether it's Haitian, whether it's African, whether it's Caribbean, as a collective, they did not go into the shift. The melanated people who are indigenous to America, what is now called America, this country, we are the only ones as a collective that went into the shift. So that's why we're the only ones that are combative against white supremacy, fighting against white supremacy. We're the only ones that now have to claim our indigenous roots and things like that, because a lot of that history patriarchy was able to hide that history, because this is metaphysical territory, because you're dealing with the Andromedan bloodline, which is not a part of the patriarchy. The biggest loser actually on the planet is the African. The reason the biggest loser on the planet as a collective is the African, because they were the first people who fell for the worship of the anus, which is a sexual agenda. Technically, it's not a sexual agenda, it's a decrepit agenda, because the worship of the anus is not classified as sex. But you had your masculine. Some of them had the Andromedan genetics on their recessive side. Others were birthed from the divine, but because the energy in Africa was so low, it reached down to a 2D, a second dimension. The Duro was able to go over there with their fat asses, starve people to death, kill off people, kill off their crops, because people were intimidated by that entity because of its size. The main reason to the African man, the fat Duro, is basically like their Marilyn Monroe. The reason that is because a lot of the African men, they fell for the worship of the anus, and they're DL men, they're undercover. So they like the fact that the Duro does the worship of the anus on them. That fat, nasty entity, it eats the feces out of their butthole, and it eats the yeast infections out of their butthole, and it gives them a multiple orgasm in their backside. So to them, that's their version of a Marilyn Monroe. This is how decrepit, how disgusting. The Bible talks about, trading in gods for other gods. So when they fell away from the divine and they became disconnected from the divine, they turned to this beastly being. Think about it. Who in Africa thinks that this entity is a sign of wealth? The Dutch, which are over there shitting on you motherfuckers, does not think that this fat Duro is a sign of wealth. The China man, you might as well call Africa China Africa, because they're buying up all the land over there. They don't think that this big fat greasy ass beastly entity is a sign of wealth. The white African, who you don't stand up to or up against because you're afraid of them, and a lot of you all over there respect whiteness, even though whiteness has colonized and subjugate you. They don't see this big fat Duro as a sign of wealth. The only entity that sees this big nasty fat beast as a sign of wealth is an African male, because it gives him a multiple orgasm in his asshole. And we need to talk about it. We need to talk about it. If the shoe fits, wear it. Okay? I'm not saying any names. You know who you are. I don't have to. But if it doesn't apply, let it fly. But this is what happened. You understand what I'm saying? And it's beastly. Now you had another entity, which was the insectilian with reptilian on the recessive side. The insectilian, they pushed something called the worship of the phallus. Okay? That was something that was pushed in patriarchy, the worship of the phallus. Where basically, you know what that is. You get on your knees and you do that as praise to the worship of the phallus of patriarchy. The reptilian is a being, their operation also was the worship of the anus. It's just that the Duro, they're a lower being, they're a second dimensional being at best, and they just do that act a lot better. Now what's happening is the remainder of the third dimension of patriarchy, which went down to the second dimension, the people of that system went down to the second dimension. That being, the Duro has now taken over the remainder of patriarchy, which is a failed system. Okay? There's no way that the African was the original man, the original anything. Because if you were, you would never have failed for that entity. You would never be the headliner for the worship of the anus. That act has been going on in Africa longer than it's been going on anywhere in the physical realm. If you were the original man, African man, you would be connected to source. We thought you were going to make it, as did some of the black men in America. They were still connected to source. Our Andromedan with Draco on the recessive side, and our Andromedan with Lyrian and Sectilian and Draco on the recessive side. They never disconnected from source. We thought that the African man that comes from the same bloodline, Andromedan is not African. It's an extraterrestrial lineage. This is why all of us black people in America, we're not African. Okay? We thought that that African man was going to be okay that came from that bloodline because he was birthed from his mother. And because she was of the physical realm, she stayed intact. Her soul and her body didn't separate. But what happened with the Andromedan woman over in Africa, her womb matched the energy of the physical realm of Africa, which had went all the way down to 2D. So when she gave birth to her son, she gave birth to basically bywords, duds. Okay? A lot of those duds, and we're going to talk about them, you know who you are, they're led by the Pisces energy, by the Piscean energy. And that's because the patriarchy was the age of the Pisces. That's when these certain males of those bloodlines, or that have some of our genetics on their recessive side, when they have that Pisces energy, they're very low, they're very manipulative, they're very conniving, they're very filthy, they're very nasty, dirty, liars, conceited. I mean, they have horrible character. And this is the age of the great reveal. I'm speaking to you as a fundamental Black American. I'm speaking to you as someone who declared their sovereignty as an earthling on this planet. I'm speaking to you as someone who knows who they are and who knows their culture and who knows everything about their bloodline and extraterrestrial lineage. I'm speaking to you as a woman who's an empress and who knows the position that I hold. Let me tell you something. You're not going to be able to fuck with me. You're not going to be able to tear me down. You're not going to be able to do anything to me. Okay? I'm connected with my extraterrestrial lineage, with my ancestors, with my bloodlines. You're not going to be able to do anything with witchcraft, sorcery. None. You tried it already. I have people that spent $20,000 a pop on doing witchcraft on me. Didn't work. I'm still here. So going back to what I was saying, this African man is the biggest loser on the planet. Now that Duro, while y'all talking about Black people in America don't know their history and their culture, you don't know your history and your culture, African man. Let me tell you why. You allowed this Duro to intercede into your tribe. A tribe is like a family. You understand what I'm saying? Just because someone is in your tribe doesn't mean that they were from your bloodline. They were supposed to be. The Duro and you are not from the same tribe because it's a different whole extraterrestrial lineage. Africa is not a bloodline. It's a fucking continent. Just because you from Africa doesn't mean that you have any ancestry to any royal bloodline or anything like that. You got reptilians over there. You got Duros over there. You got insectilians over there. Those are from the Galactic Federation. Those entities don't even have a cycle anymore. You have bywords over there. They don't have a cycle anymore. So you allowed African man because you did not protect your African woman, and because you did not protect your tribe, in particular the Zulu warrior nation and the Mandingo nation. You did not protect your tribe. So what ended up happening, this beast, this nasty entity, entered your tribe and played as if it was African. This bitch ain't even African. Now, a lot of these Duros, how they came upon the planet, we went down so low due to cloning and due to some of the agendas in order to kill and destroy the divine. They brought this entity on the planet. Now you have some of the Piscean energies, which may be insectilian with the Andromedan genetics on their recessive side. They fell for the insectilian with reptilian on this entity. And this entity is a secret transgender, okay? Fooling people, trying to put on the identity of the divine like it's me. Bitch, you ain't me. This cone head ass looking bitch is not me. Okay, don't look nothing like me, but it does the worship of the anus, and a lot of them still have their penises, and they do that act on so-called masculine. Okay, so what happened? They came over here from Africa in order to subjugate us with the worship of the anus. A lot of sex magic is going on. A lot of voodoo and witchcraft is going on. And you think that we're not aware of this, but we are. It is against universal law to wage war on a being like me who poses no threat to you and who's doing nothing to you. And you getting your ass kicked by the ancestors. You getting judged by spiritual courts. You have no idea what you've done and you won't be able to undo it. Okay? it's to your disadvantage that you came over here. That's why Africa exiled your ass. And then you done drop skinny all of a sudden. Girl bye, or whatever you are. You know, because it's not really a girl. Somewhat, or whatever. So you done drop skinny now because you trying to look like the empress. It's not going to work. You still bigger than me. And I'm not that skinny. That's a big bitch. Okay. So, you know, I just wanted to touch on some of that and give you guys some of those gems. And we really need to be, I'm going to say this. First of all, before these opposing entities fuck with a divine being, you need to do your goddamn research and really understand who the fuck I am. You didn't do your research. You're tapping all into my fucking Akashic records and shit. You should have tapped in and discovered who the fuck I am. Stop going to these practitioners. Stop going to these people trying to come up against me. I am shielded. I am protected. Okay? From the underworld on up to the astral realm. I'm protected and beyond. So you should have done that before you fucked with me. And women like me. Empresses like us. Second of all, now you're here. You done brought this shitty ass operation from Africa that they wouldn't even allow you to operate. Now you're here and you're stuck. And you're not going to get out of it. You got to pay for that karma. You're not going to be able to undo it. So while you're sitting up here talking about black people in America, fundamental black people in America, we don't know our history and our culture. You don't know your history and your culture. You don't even realize that Africa is not a bloodline. It's just a continent. You don't even realize that you've been infiltrated. Your tribes have been infiltrated by other extraterrestrial lineages that you are not even related to, that are not African. Okay? So, the joke's on you. The joke's on you. That's pretty much it. That's all I basically wanted to say. That's it. So right now, you know, you have two people that Divine Masculine has linked up with this Divine Masculine that's a Pisces, of Pisces energy himself. He's linked up with the Insectilian Reptilian, which is a loser, a piece of shit, a dud. And he's linked up with the Duro, which is a loser, a piece of shit, a dud, and this bitch done popped up skinny. Because see, over here in America, being big and fat like that, that's not a symbol of wealth. That's not a symbol of anything. That's not even a symbol of patriarchy. It damn sure isn't a symbol of matriarchy. That's not a symbol of anything good. That doesn't fly over here. The fact that you thought, you gotta be mentally ill. You gotta be mentally ill, because the fact that you thought you could pass this shit off in my country, you a goddamn fool. Well, once again, this is Genesis, with Genesis, the beginning of something beautiful. You guys have a great evening. Okay.